Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to try a little bit to prepare for Yom HaKippurim Haba Aleinu L'Tova, Yom HaKadosh, the day of Tahara, the day of purity, the day of Mikveh Yisrael Hashem, the day of entering into that place beyond knowledge, that day that is like Purim, that day that intimates to a certain sense of not knowing that we can only try and fathom on Yom Kippurim, where it's still a Chaf HaDimyon, and it's only fully experienced in Purim. So one of the ways that we're going to enter in is by identifying the main issue that a person struggles with prior to entering into Yom Kippurim, and that is the relationship between guilt and shame. It's something that we've spoken about in the past, and it's something that we'll continue to speak about. But guilt is when I look at a particular action or a behavior that I've engaged in, and I'm able to contextualize the sense that while this is something that I'm responsible for and something that I must try and amend if that's within my capacity, nevertheless, it does not define the very fabric of who I am or the texture of my soul as an individual. So when a person feels guilty over something, when a person is contrite over a certain particular action, and I'm looking objectively at something that I may have done or a thought process that I've had or a way of expressing myself, so I look back at it from a perspective of distance. I'm able to see it as something that is certainly rooted in me, but is not definitive of who I am. And I'm able to take responsibility. I'm able to fix what I can fix, accept what I need to accept. And I'm able to manage the fact that there's certain things that I'm responsible for. That's a healthy sense of guilt. Guilt is something that tells me that there, as a result of my actions, there is a certain penance that needs to be paid in whatever framework that takes shape. Shame, on the other hand, is when I'm no longer able to look at my actions as a subject that looks at objective things that have taken place. And because there's a difference between subject and object, the objective act does not define the subjective self. In shame, there is a tishtush, there is a breakdown of the barrier that separates the subjective core of self and the objective expression of our behaviors. And somehow, some way, the two begin to merge together so that I now look at my behaviors and I see them as definitive of the very depth of who I am. When I no longer am able to separate between the maisa or the thought or the expression, which is objective, and the innermost calm that I experience, which is my subjectivity. And now the two of them merge together. So now I look at my behaviors, I look at what I've done, I look at the objective things that have taken shape in my life, and I say, this is definitive of me. And unlike an objective thing that I can either let go of or pick up, hold on to, or toss away, when something feels that it is part and parcel of my subjective orientation, the act is no longer something that I do, but rather it is representative of who I am. It is far more difficult to A, acknowledge it, to B, move beyond it, and C, to begin to get to a place where I don't have to engage with it anymore. The reason that it's so difficult to look at an action that I am shameful over is because that action is definitive of me. And if it's definitive of me, for me to try and change that would mean for me to try and change myself, which is somewhat of an impossibility. I can't change the core of who I am. And if I see my actions or my misdeeds or my mistakes as representative of the core of who I am, then I'm going to apply the same logic to the mistakes and say, just as I can't change the core of who I am, I can't change the things that I've done. And so I'm going to cover them over because when I look at them, when I look at those things, they're going to remind me that my core of self is bad. That's the source of toxic shame, where I'm no longer able to differentiate between the doer of an act or a thought or a word and the action or the thought or the word. There is a breakdown of the partition that separates self from outside world. And when a person falls into that place, when a person falls into that toxic shame, into that unhealthy place of identifying myself with all of the dirtiness and all of the lichluch and all of the weight of last year's mistakes and all of the things that I feel I can't change, so then I'm going to develop a pattern of paralysis and kind of a self-destructive pattern of self-fulfilling prophetic inability to change because I'm not even going to begin to attempt to let go of those behaviors because those represent who I am. That is me. When I'm guilty over something, the thing is not me. It's something that I'm able to let go of. I'm not bad. I've done something wrong. And because I'm not bad, I can uncover that inherent goodness within myself to take over that which was done wrong. Kol pshayim techaseh ahava. But when I identify myself as bad, when I identify myself with the rock and the burden of all of the misdeeds and the struggles that I experience, so then I'm not going to be able to let go of it because letting go of it is going to feel like letting go of an essential part of myself. And that's not something I'm willing to do. So shame prevents a person from actually doing the work. Shame keeps a person stuck in those holding patterns of self-loathing, which tells me that I'm so bad I can't fix, I'm so bad I can't fix, I'm so bad I can't fix. And it becomes this kind of almost unhealthy form of pleasure in the fact that I don't have to do anything because I'm all bad. I convince myself of my impossibility of breaking free from whatever it is that's holding me back because I've adapted to the narratives of shame, which tell me that I am what I do. And because what I do has taken over who I am, then I can't change that. And so a major part of Yom HaKippurim is pulling ourselves out of the toxicity of shame, pulling ourselves out of that drunken perspective that tells me that I am what I do or that my actions define who I am. And it's abstracting myself out of that hellish place and pulling myself back up to the place of healthy guilt. Guilt where I can analyze the actions, the thoughts, the speech patterns, the methodology of my experience in this world. I can see what's broken. I can see what I feel that I can fix right now. I can see where the effort needs to be placed. I can see the triggers in my life that I need to remove. I can look at it objectively because I'm not feeling broken. I'm empowered with the sense that deep down there's a part of me that is untouched. It has nothing to do with the action that I've done. It has everything to do with the innermost point of who I am. And I'm able to look at the action by way of distance, which is the secret of Hachna'a, Havdalah, and Hamtaka, making it smaller, not identifying myself with the thing, separating myself from the action, and then learning how to sweeten the action. But when I'm in a place of toxic shame, there's no room to breathe because there's no separation, and I identify myself with that negative deed. The Piasatz Nereba Hashem Yom Komdomo, when picking up on this swampland of the self that is exposed through this process of shame, which reveals a certain self-loathing that enables the person to take comfort, God forbid, in their incapacity or inability to move, and they lay stuck in the place that they're at because they identify themselves as something negative. So the Heilige Piasatz Nereba Hashem Yom Komdomo wrote in his diary, when he was in hell on earth, when he was in the Warsaw Ghetto, he was drawing down Gan Eden into hell on earth, as he continues to do. Hashem Yimkom Domo Schusi Ogan Aleinu. But the Piasatz Rebbe wrote a diary of Tzav V'zira's spiritual teachings that emerge from the depth of the heart of the tzaddik, that were in only for the tzaddik and for the world listening without any particular listener, which is why they speak so powerfully across generations. The Piasatz Rebbe has a profound nakuda about the toxicity of shame. He says, the pasuk says, "Rishayim meleim charatos," that the wicked are filled with regrets. So in this context, we're going to translate the notion of regret with this toxic notion of shame, where I identify myself with my actions, and as a result of identifying with my actions, I'm unable to let go of those actions. Unlike guilt, where I'm able to identify myself and the action, and therefore I can let go of the action. The Heilige Piasatz Rebbe writes as follows. He says that Rishoyim Maleim Charatos, that the wicked are filled with charata. Why? Because just as we experience attention deficit disorder, we also experience emotional deficit disorder. And human beings are conditioned in such a way that we cannot maintain a beating heart, a pulsating heart that's filled with intense feeling for a very long time. And typically speaking, when there's an emotional burst of expression, it will dissipate as quickly as it came, and it will leave emptiness in its trace. So we feel very intense feelings, we feel strong feelings, we feel things viscerally, but when the viscerality of that strong feeling dissipates, we assume that it's gone completely. So when a person falls, when a person struggles, when a person is grappling with the struggles in their life, and a person has convinced themselves that they can't break free of it because I've been taught along the way to identify with my bad actions and I'm stuck in the swampland of shame. So then a person is going to continuously feel that sudden burst of shame, that sudden burst of, oh my God, I'm so bad, that comes with the getting stuck in the behaviors. But because that strong emotion expresses itself so intensely and it dissipates as quickly, so that initial burst of shame, when it's there, I feel miserable. When it goes away, I return back to my natural holding pattern of wallowing in the muck of my experience, and I feel that I've done work because the shame is no longer there. You haven't done anything about the process. You haven't come to a place of identifying what's wrong. Rather, you simply are experiencing an initial burst of a strong emotion, and when it dissipates, it feels like, oh, I've worked through it. But in truth, a person has kept themselves stuck all along, because when I'm looking at it as shame, it's such an overwhelming feeling that I can't maintain it for a long time, and when it dissipates, I feel I've worked on it. Masha'en kain guilt, a healthy perspective of, okay, there's something that I need to do right now. I'll be able to maintain that mindset because it's not crippling anymore. And I'll be able to pick myself up and actually take steps necessary to undo the stuckness that I feel. And says the Rebbe that this is the inyan of Rashayim Malayim Charatos. How could you be a Rasha and still be Malay with Charata? The Charata here is the shame. A wicked person who's filled with shame is because the shame continues to enable you to remain in your wickedness, because shame convinces me of my inability to change because I'm identifying myself with my breakdowns and my low points, and therefore I develop the self-fulfilling prophecy that I can't. And so, to break free from this shame induced prison where the self is no longer able to identify the innermost kernel and the goodness of the mind, the heart, and the body, we remain stuck within that broken place. Come along Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is that one day a year. Yom Kippur is the day that reveals the true nature of all days. Yom Kippur is the day where we're no longer caught up in the Yetzer Hara of shame. The emergence of busha, the emergence of shame, the emergence of the inability to differentiate between who I am and how I express myself, forgetting about the distinction between etzem, which is the essential kernel of self prior to expression, and hispashtus, which is the self in its process of expressing, that takes place after Chet of Eitzadas, and that gives birth to self-consciousness, which the next step is going to be this orientation towards busha or shame. That's the element of the Yetzer Hara, continuously trying to force me to identify with my misdeeds rather than to identify with my good parts. That's the secret of Yom Kippurim, which comes where there's no Yetzer Hara and we are free from shame. We enable ourselves to free ourselves from shame, and that's why we can spend so much time talking objectively about what we've done, talking objectively about what we struggle with, because only a healthy person who understands the difference between self and action is someone who can properly look at their actions and say, okay, that's something that I've done wrong. That's something that I need to fix. That's something that I need to work through. A person who's stuck in toxic shame, who can see no differentiation between self and action, is unable of expressing and itemizing the things that they struggle with, because each and every time that I identify something, that's cutting off a part of myself because I am that broken thing. It's only a healthy-minded guilt and a recognition that I'm free from the Yetzer Hara of shame, and I identify the fact that no, internally I'm good, and there are certain actions that need to be fixed. So it's in that place that I'm able to say vidoy. It's in that place that I'm able to say ashamnu, bagadnu, because every time I say ashamnu, bagadnu, okay, it's bad, it has to be fixed, there's responsibility, there's rules, there's regulations, there's a process. But in the end of the day, it doesn't define who I am. I can still continue to function as a healthy-minded individual who has a semblance of confidence at the core of my soul that reminds me always that I am connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu no matter what happens. And so Yom Kippurim is the day of coming to terms, with this recognition that I am not what I do. And it's only when I recognize that I am not what I do that I can develop the confidence to look at what I do, to work through what I do, and to come to a place where I can make myself better. And so how does Yom Kippur free us? How does Yom Kippur free us from that toxic shame that disables me from actually working through anything, because I'm never going to cut off part of myself, and enables me to live with the confidence that I am good and that there are parts of me that need to become better? So the secret of Yom Kippurim is the secret of the Gilui. It's the revelation of the innermost point of the Jewish heart. Yom Kippur is all about Bina. Yom Kippur is all about the heart. Yom Kippur is all about Shuva. Yom Kippur is all about reaching that place of Bina, of true understanding, of coming to a place of knowing who I truly am. But it's not simply an expression of Bina. What it actually is the revelation of the highest light of Keser within the vessels of Bina, which is expressed finally in Ne'ilah when we say Hashem Hu HaElokim, that Hashem, which is the Or Ein Sof Kavyachol, expresses itself specifically within the limitation of Bina, which is the secret of Elokim. And what is being niskala within the heart of each and every Yid on Yom Kippur is the inner nakuda of the leiv, the re'usa deliba, the desire of the heart, the true desire of the heart, the yechida shebenefesh, the singularity of the self, the nakuda of the Kohen Gadol within each and every one of us, within the Kodesh HaKadoshim within each and every one of us, within the time frame of Yom Kippurim within each and every one of us. This is the secret of coming to the place of the hisgalus, the revelation of the essential nature of the Jewish soul, which is the yechida shebenefesh, the singularity of the soul that rests underneath all of the layers, all of the levushim of all of the other parts of self. To be a self through the lens of Chazal, through the lens of our tzaddikim, as well as expressed, obviously, through all gradations of healthy psychology and most importantly, neuroscience and neuropsychology. But to be a self is a complex thing. There's layers and layers upon the self. When it comes to defining what the self is, the Zohar Kadosh and our tzaddikim and the Arizal and the Baal Shem Tov and the Gra and all of the tzaddikim describe it as a layered process. The self is like an onion. It has layers to it. It is not a singular semblance without any distortion, but there are parts. And these parts work like a garment upon an inner level. Each and every level has a garment. And the garment to the more interior level is going to become the interior level to a more externalized garment. And so we have these five parts of self which are engarbed upon one another. And so to begin from the lowest part of self, there's the nefesh, there's the body, there's the lived sense of being in a body, there's the haptic sense, there's the sense of the body with its kind of silent electricity that moves through it, giving the sense of self of being in the world. Then there's the ruach, which is going to be oriented towards the heart and emotions and the experience of the habituation of emotions and strong feelings, which don't necessarily care about what the intellect or the mind is saying. Then there's going to be the neshama, which is going to be our best self to a certain degree, the ideals that we try and live with, the neshama element of ourselves, our thinking that has the possibility of overcoming and laying claim to control over the emotions. And so in those places of the nefesh, the ruach, and the neshama, we struggle. Those things operate in this world on the level of the nefesh, on the level of the guf. We all know how we struggle. Each and every person's body is bruised and broken by the time they show up to Yom HaKippurim, by the time they show up to any day. The ruach, our emotions are all out of whack. The lack of confidence, the anxiety, the sadness that we keep ourselves stuck in, the negative thinking, the obsessional trends of thought, the ruminations, all of these kind of aches and pains that our heart experiences, they keep us dragged down. They can go from one thing to the other. The heart can go from one world to the other in a moment. And when there's a lave and there's a lave, and we feel that there's a doubled nature of the heart, it gives birth to bilbul. Bilbul is the language of a doubled heart. And the avoda of all of the tshuva that we're doing in the Yom Naraim is to come to the secret of lulav and the esrog, which is low lave, to give HaKadosh Baruch Hu our hearts completely and to elevate our heart completely to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But in those three levels of self, in those three outer garments of machshava, dibur, and maisa, of thought, speech, and action, of the nefesh, ruach, and neshama, so there's dirtiness, there's ups and downs, there's falling. And if we only identify with those parts of ourselves, so then I'm going to see myself as a nefesh and a ruach and a neshama, which means that it is susceptible to change. And if I'm susceptible to change, that means that there's no inner point of self that is unchanging. There's no stability of self. There's no inner ground that maintains stability in the face of all change. And if a person is only orienting themselves toward those three levels of the soul, nefesh, ruach, and neshama, so then a person might, God forbid, to come to think that they can actually lose sight of the innermost point of the self that remains present in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu unchangingly ad infinitum. In spite of the fact that kedushasi l'mala mikdushaseichem, that I will always be a level below HaKadosh Baruch Hu, obviously, because a person will always come to grasp that they can't grasp something, but nevertheless, that unchanging point grows in accordance with the graspability of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But if I'm stuck in the nefesh, ruach, and the neshama, which are fallible, which can become dirtied, each one according to its own level, and in accordance with the overwhelmingness, so too the sense of pollution, so then I'm going to feel that sometimes I'm with Hashem and sometimes I'm not with Hashem. And that's that shame orientation. When I'm in the worlds of Bia, when I'm in the worlds of Bria, Yitzira, Nasiya, and the toxic shame of it all, in the busha of Acharei Chet Eitzadas, so I am still in that place where I feel that my levushim are who I am. The garments, the way that I express myself in this world by thought, speech, or action is definitive of who I am. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through his tzaddikim, reveals to us that in truth, that's only the infantile perspective of self, but one must grapple with those places, one must deal with those places. A person has to scrub, scrub, scrub till they become shining for the sake of being a shliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. And every mitzvah is a diamond of an opportunity, and every rectification and movement forward and movement towards health on a psychological, emotional, or physical level is worthwhile to come down into this world for 120 years. And the responsibility there is great and the work there is great, but it does not define who we are, because there are, in fact, parts of us that are higher, that are unexpressed within the revealed place of our experience in this world, that reveal the innermost quality of ourselves. And those are referred to as the makifim, those surrounding lights, those ideals that don't necessarily enter into the body, those parts of myself that I'm not conscious of. It's the inner drive that moves through me that has nothing to do with me, but it's the breath of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavyachol, the chaya, the vitality, the chachma that moves through me. But even that chachma that gives life to me, my vitality, that makif that surrounds but comes close and then departs, but it comes close again, that place of the chaya, even in that place, even when a yid is shown that no, you have the breath of life moving through you, through the secret of the shofar, that everything is okay, and that you can move up with the shofar and shufru ma'asechem. And when you connect to the chachma and the chaya and that fourth level of the soul, everything is okay. The koach of the yetzer, the koach of shame is so great that it can even come to that place. Even in that place of bittul of chachma, if I don't do it properly, I can still come to question my chachma. I can still come to question my worthiness in that place of chachma. And even though kulam bechachma is bariru, even though everything is refined in chachma and the chaya is a purified place, nevertheless there is an emergence, the emergence of the emergence of the emergence of the moichas tima'ah, that concealed place of mind, which is still expressive of gevuros and the secret of the butzina de kardenusa, which contains a certain element of fallibility and a certain sense of shame orientation, even in the place of chachma, God forbid, even though it has no role in the place of chachma, that if I don't grasp chachma properly and I don't know how to draw chachma down properly, so then chachma alone can lead me to a place where I become confused and I feel unworthy again. But then there's the place of the yechida. And in the place of the yechida shebenefesh, in the innermost inner interiority of the soul, that inner dot of self that expresses no expression other than the concealment of itself, because it can't be expressed. That place without any levush, that place that is revealed only in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, only in the isolation and the solitude of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, of the Bad Kodesh Yilbash, of the Hisbaididus, of the Badad Yashav, in that place where each and every person has to come to terms with the fact that Bishvili Niver Ha'olam, and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, without me, you don't have rulership in this world because I'm the Malchus. And if I don't accept your kingship upon myself, then this world will continue to exist without your kingship, God forbid, where a person is able to encounter HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yechida li Yechidcha, that our Yechida encounters the Yechida of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol, to reveal that it is me and me alone in this innermost point of my Kodesh HaKadoshim. In that place, there is no room for pollution whatsoever. There is no levush there. It is the Etzem HaNefesh. The Etzem HaNefesh is Niskala there, and that Etzem HaNefesh, that etzem hanefesh, which can't be grasped, it can't be defined, it can't be expressed, it can't be thematized. Any moment that we try and thematize what it is, anytime we try and arrest it as some space of self that can be oriented or grasped or measured, we've already defiled it. We've already made it into something magushim. We've already made it into an idol. The innermost point of self is that point of coming to realize that Rabbeinu Shalom, I have no idea how, and I have no idea why, and I have no idea why I would even believe this, and I don't have evidence to believe this, and my actions seem to invoke otherwise, but nevertheless, I am willing to give my life on the belief that there is a nakuda of goodness that exists within me that is not reachable by anything other than you. It bears no stain. There is nothing there. Everything is cleansed in the face of the Yechida Shebenefesh. In that place of the Nekuda HaPnimis of the Leiv, the Nekuda HaShayach L'Liba Be'ez Hazos, the Ru'usa Deliba, which is always Makusher to the Or Ein Sof Mamish, not because we're so frum or because we're so good, but because it's not ours. It's the Chelek Eloikam Imam Mamish. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world for reasons that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. All of the reasons that we give for it, even the reasons that Tzaddikim give for it, we still don't know anything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. The Tzaddikim know that only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows, which is what enables them to give reasons. But ultimately, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows, the beginning, the middle, and the end. We know absolutely nothing. And the kli to access that point of the Yechida Shebenefesh is the Mesiras Nefesh. The Mesiras Nefesh and the Emunah of the Yechida Shebenefesh, that I am good. Tova ani be'enav, I'm okay. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know why, I don't know where, but I know that in the innermost point of myself, no matter what has taken place, no matter what has gone on, there is a Yechida, there is a Kesher Pnimi that has no susceptibility to disconnection or connection. It's above connection and connection. It's above any possibility of yes and no. It just is. It's the Etzem HaNefesh that is Niskala in this radical acceptance of the goodness of the self and the purity of the self, which enables me to pick myself up again. And in that place, I free myself from all shame. In that place, I know that the innermost point of my desire, Ribono Shel Olam, is to always carry out your will. That as the Rambam says, that the Nakuda of Ratzon, the Nakuda of Yechida Shebenefesh, no matter what happens, life will force us to acknowledge the fact that all I want to do is connect to you, Ribono Shel Olam. All cravings, all desire, all sadness, all anxiety, all need for affirmation, all seeking out of honorifics and expression or thanks or affirmation that we walk around with in this world is all as a result of not living in accordance with the Yechida Shebenefesh, with the Dveikus Amiti, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that innermost point of Kodesh HaKadoshim, where a Yid is never separate from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that all exists is the goodness that is essential, and all inessential negativity and levushim are tossed away. In that inner place of the Kodesh HaKadoshim of Lo Yada, in that place is the skala that all of our struggles are accidental. Nothing is deliberate. I can't be deliberate. Deliberate means utilizing all 5 parts of myself. And I don't have access to the 5th part of myself, except on Yom Kippur, where it's revealed, where I realize that everything that I've done had no relationship to the innermost point of myself. Throughout the year, we can look at ourselves on the level of nefesh, the body, ruach, emotions, neshama, the mind, the chaya, even the ideals of spirituality, God forbid, if we don't utilize those things properly. We can look at those things and we can claim, you know what? I did those things. I'm responsible. I did those things on purpose, and that represents exactly who I am. And that forces me into a posture of thinking that I'm bad and identifying myself with something dirty or something that can become dirtied, God forbid. But when I uncover the Yechida Shebenefesh, what is Niskala Lemafreya, what is revealed retroactively, is that, wow, there has never been a moment where what I have been doing has expressed every single part of myself. There's always an etzem shebenefesh. There's always the yechida shebenefesh that remains silent in the tzniusa of the nefesh, the source of the Sefer of Chaim and the Sefer of Mesim. We live with the Sefer of Chaim and the Sefer of Mesim in the different parts of ourselves. But in the secret of the tzafir tzniusa and the book of concealment and the concealment of the book, which is the yechida shebenefesh, in that place it's just the secret of lo yada. I don't know how, I don't know why, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but I'm being moser nefesh on the belief that kilacha haslicha, you can forgive me, because this place of myself was not involved. In the innermost point of my core, I want to come closer to you. Now, it's only by encountering that place of self that we can then healthfully go into the process of ashamnu, bagadnu, gazalnu, dibarnu, dofi. Because a person who's trying, like we said, to fix those things with the assumption that the innermost point of self, of the Yechida Shebenefesh, was involved in those things, will never be able to fix those things. Because how can I fix that which is most essential? It's only when I identify the fact that that which is most essential, the Yechida Shebenefesh, is always present, yet never involved in the other layers of experience, so that I'm able to separate myself in a healthy sense of distance from the shameful stuckness, and I'm able to look at it with eyes of guilt, and I'm able to now go through the process. And this is why we introduce Yom HaKippurim prior to all of the vidois, prior to all of the acknowledgement and the taking of an accounting of ourselves and working through the issues. First and foremost, we go into Kol Nidre. Kol Nidre, what are we doing in Kol Nidre? What's being revealed in Kol Nidre? What's being revealed in Kol Nidre is the secret of Kikol Ha'am B'Shkaga. That in the end of the day, Ribono Shel Olam, every single thing that the nation has done, every single thing that each and every one of us has done in this year that is against your Ratzon is B'Shkaga, is accidental. We're not denying responsibility. We're not saying it's bishkaga on a body level, on an emotional level, on a cognitive level, or even on a spiritual level. In those areas, we are responsible to fix what we must fix. But when it comes to the level of the yechida shebenefesh, ki kol ha'am bishkaga, sofei tevos mila, in that innermost point of the yechida shebi yechida, in the yesod shebi yesod, in the foundation of all things, in the kodesh hakadashim, in that place, ki kol ha'am bishkaga. The Yechida has never been involved in a chait. The Yechida has never been involved in lichluch. The Yechida Shebenefesh is not subject to pollution. It's not subject to concealment. It is revealed. Why can't we feel it? The way that it reveals itself is concealment. Like we said, the Yechida cannot be expressed. The moment I'm magshim it, the moment I try and give a definitive name or expression to it, is the moment it's become a gilui. It's a levush. It's something that is susceptible to shame. And so the very expression of this unshameable place of the Yechida Shebenefesh, the singularity of the self, can only be explained as the singularity of the self. Each person knows it intuitively without knowing it. It's the place that only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. We don't have the responsibility to know the Yechida Shebenefesh. We have the responsibility of believing and being Moser Nefesh for the belief in the Yechida Shebenefesh. And in that place, we're able to reveal Ki Kol Ha'am B'Shkaga, that nothing was done deliberate. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you threw us into a world where there's concealment. You threw us into a world where we're subject to ups and downs and changes. Of course we're going to fall. Of course we're going to struggle. And of course, you and your Rachamim Rabbim give us a Yom Kippur to realize that the only way to grapple with the struggle, the only way to grapple with the things that I feel I am stuck in, is by first and foremost abstracting and pinpointing that place within myself that is higher than my struggle, that place of strength that rests outside of my hopelessness, that place, that power greater than myself that expresses itself within myself to reveal that I'm powerless in those other areas. So when I'm able to accept that place within me, the Yechida Shebenefesh, I'm now able to look and say, Ki kol ha'am b'shkaga, I didn't do this on purpose. It's not my fault. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're the one who created concealment. And so once you accept the fact that Kol ha'am b'shkaga Hashem, once you accept the fact that it's all accidental, then we're willing to go through Yom Kippurim. Then we're willing to go through Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu, and all of the bad things and all of the struggles and all of the clarifications that are necessary. That can only be done when we've accepted and we've stated our point, which is Hashem, this is all accidental. We didn't do this on purpose. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who taught us this. We can't be blamed. We didn't do it on purpose. We don't have the Yechidah Shebenefesh revealed. Reveal our Yechidah Shebenefesh, Hashem. Reveal the Sherish of the Yitzhak Tov, and you'll see that we don't do anything wrong. This was what the Shpaler Zayda would say. The Shpaler Zayda would say, Hashem, you reveal your Yitzhahara so much in this world and you conceal yourself. Maybe reveal yourself and conceal the Yitzhahara. See what happens. There's no doubt that Klal Yisrael is going to come to fulfill your will. The very fact that this world is a world of concealment, that this world is a place where the Yechidah Shebenefesh, the Mashiach Nakuda in each and every Yid, the Kohen Gadol Nakuda in each and every Yid is not revealed in an explicit way. So by definition, we're going to fall. That's the secret of Bina being the expression of Yom Kippurim. Bina is Miklal D'Ta'ah. Of course we fell. We had to fall. We're human beings. We're not the Boira, God forbid. And if we're not the Boira, if we're not the creator of the world, then we're a creature. And as creatures, we fall. We make mistakes. That's the secret of Yom Kippurim, that we're Balei Shkaga. It's the one thing the Malachim can't understand, what it means to make a mistake. We show that we have the koyach of the Malachim. We could pretend to be like the Malachim. We could daven like the Malachim. But the Iker Nekuda of Yom Kippurim is that it's by mistake. I made a mistake, Rabbeinu Shalom. You concealed my Yechidah Shebenefesh from me. Reveal it to me. The Heilige Rebbe Rashab at the end of Tafresh Samach Vav, and the end of Hemshech Samach Vav, he describes the Nekuda that's being Nisgala on Yom Kippurim as the He'elem Ha'atzmi of the Or Ein Sof that's going to be Nisgala La'asid. The He'elem Ha'atzmi is the essential concealment. What this means is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will never fully reveal himself to our grasp in a way that we can grasp the essence of God, so to speak, because God's essence, so to speak, is always beyond our capacity to grasp. And therefore, and all that's going to be revealed is the Shem Ha'atzmi, the essential name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem Hu Elokim. But nevertheless, a Shem is always just revelatory of an essential thing that rests beyond the Shem. And that thing that rests beyond the shame is never going to be fully revealed, except by way of the he'elem ha'atzmi, the essential concealment, a concealment that is not based on the fact that something has not yet been revealed, but a concealment that is based on the fact that even if it were to be revealed, it would be revealed by way of concealment itself because it cannot be grasped. That's what's being niskala on Yom Kippurim. We express this by way of refraining from food, because what we truly want to access is a tainug that can't be grasped by way of the guf, and therefore the only way to symbolize that is to renege and renunciate any attempt to satisfy the tainug that we know belongs to the soul, and so we refrain from physical activity, not because we're punishing ourselves, but because we're recognizing to Hashem that there is a sense that I don't yet know that has the capacity of receiving a tainug that is far higher than any level of tainug that I can possibly understand, as the tzaddikim describe Yom Kippurim as the secret of lahachyoisam bera'av. That it's not to feed them when they're hungry, but it's rather to feed them through their hunger. It's the yearning, it's the cheshek, it's the hishtoikukus, then the ratzon of ratzon, and the unfathomable silent shtika and snios and concealment and modesty of that innermost point of the Yechidah Shebenefesh that is never revealed other than by way of concealment. And when we access that point, when we are mapshid ourselves from levushim, we enter into the place of now understanding that kikol ha'am b'shkaga, my yechidah shebenefesh, the essential part of myself, was never fully revealed in this world. And therefore, I can't be held fully responsible. I can be held responsible on 3 levels, even perhaps on a 4th level to one degree or another. But on a 5th level, I'm always tahor. That's the entrance into the mikvah. That's the 5 tefillos of Yom Kippurim, the 5 iyunim. Everything is about waking us up to that innermost point, the kutza shel yud, the innermost point of the nishmas Yehudi that is never ever dirty. It's never ever away from the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the Nakud of Mashiach that has not yet been niskala within each and every yid. It's the das of Moshe Rabbeinu that's niskala in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. It's the Shar Hanun that we take from Haman Harasha on the secret of Purim and we drag it into Yom Kippurim in the secret of the Goral. The Goral represents that ultimately Hashem chooses me not based on something that I've done. Hashem chooses me not based on what I've done with my body, not based on what I've done with my ruach, not based on what I've done with my neshama, or even my chaya, but He chooses me based on the yechida, which is without reason. It's belitam v'das, it's the Goral. The Sirla Azazel and the Sirla Hashem, they're identifiable with one another. They're identical. They're the same exact thing as Rav Hutner expresses in the name of Chazal. But it's specifically there that the true distinction is going to emerge because it's not a distinction that's based on actual difference. If it was a distinction that was based on difference, as Hashem loved me because my nefesh is good and my ruach is good and my neshama is good and my chaya is good, then there's the susceptibility of my nefesh, my ruach, and my neshama and my chaya not being good, God forbid. And that's an ava shetali b'davar. Hashem loves me because He loves me. It's yechidah shebenefesh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saleachas because He's saleachas, not because we've deserved it. There's no amount of deserving that could fathomably bring down a nitzutz of Yom Kippurim. Yom Kippurim is the Goral Hashem. It's a secret of Purim. It's a secret of Mikra. It's the random precision that emerges when we see that Hashem is the only one who runs the world. Not because I think I'm good, am I good? Not because I think I'm contrite, am I contrite? I go through the act of Yom Kippurim because I know Kikol Ha'am B'Shkaga. Once I know Kikol Ha'am B'Shkaga, Rabbeinu Shalom, you are the one who is fearing the Welt on every level. You are the one who sees the innermost point of my Yechida Shebenefesh. You are the one who loves me unconditionally. It's only then that I'm able to separate myself from the toxic shame that says that I'm not loved unconditionally and puts me back into the place of feeling that I'm stuck in conditionality. When I realize Kikola Ambishkaga, when I encounter the Nakuda of Mila within myself, the Kodesh HaKadoshim within the self that doesn't need to be felt in order to be believed in, it just needs to be believed in. I can't ever experience it other than by way of Ha'elem Ha'atzmi. There's no possible way of experiencing it. And once I accept that fact, then I can go into the Ashamnu Baganu. Okay, so on the levels of real experience and known experience, I have to fix. I'm responsible, but that doesn't touch my Yechidah Shabenefesh. Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. In the place of the mikveh, in Mayim b'Mayim, a person gets back to that place of the Kedusha and the Tahara that is irreducible from the secret of the Yechidah, and that's the birth of Mashiach Tzidkenu on Yom Kippurim. That's the emergence of the nitzutz of Mashiach within the heart of each and every Yid, of drawing the nitzutz into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, drawing the Das of Moshe into Kodesh HaKadoshim, Yibein Shnei HaKruvim, which is the secret of the Yechidah Shebenefesh, which is irreducible in its goodness, not because we've earned it, but because there's absolutely nothing that we can do to ever pollute it. That's the secret of the Shkaga. To recognize that I'm a shogeg in this world, Hashem. And a shogeg has to deal with things. A vada, a shogeg has to deal with things. But in truth, all of the shkaga, all of the concealment that I find myself stuck in, it's all a shlichus of the yechida. It's all just the processing in which the unprocessable nature of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's tikkun for our particular neshamas to go through. All of the levushim of the nefesh, all of the shkagos will be revealed, as the Sod Yisharim explains in Peites and Sukkos, and the entirety of Sod Yisharim is ultimately based on this, is that within the shkaga, we're going to come to find the profound level of das. We're going to come to see how every part of our lives, every part of our experiences, we're all revealing HaKadosh Baruch Hu more and more. Not, God forbid, to live with that consciousness prior to our fall, but after the fall, if we find ourselves in that place of the levushim of the nefesh getting meluchlach and dirtied, we have to understand that deeply kikol ha'am b'shkaga, and within the shkaga itself is the innermost point of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ratzon that is unfolding throughout reality, and my only job is to orient myself to the moichin of tshuva, which uncovers that innermost point of the yechida, and the secret of drawing out from the chelbana of the katoras, that pleasant smell that comes from that which can never be ruined. That's the mindset of the shkaga, that I'm a shogeg. It doesn't relinquish me from responsibility. Adrab, it gives me the koyach to have responsibility. It gives me the koyach to face the things that I need to face and the courage to change what can be changed, because I no longer identify myself with the things that need to be changed. It's specifically from this place of shkaga, when we come to this place of realizing that we're all accidental and that we're responsible, but that there's a part of ourselves that is never fully involved in the fall, in the concealment. It's from that place that we have the ability of finding translation to our experiences, elevating from within the concealment and the loss of mind the certain remnants of significance. As Rabbi Nachman describes in the 19th teaching, that shogeg and operating in a place of shogeg is like being stuck in a place of translation, a place where there's concealment abound, where I don't know if it's Lashon HaKodesh, which is clarified, I don't know if it's Targum, or I don't know if it's the nation's language and concealed. It's a place of stumbling around in the darkness to uncover the residue and the residual lights of light, to build it back up, to reveal an original piece that comes about by way of the translation of my experiences, the secret of tshuva. And this secret of tshuva through Targum is the secret of the shogeg. When I come to recognize that everything is by mistake, I come to also understand how I can properly learn to move through my life and let go of my negative character traits because they don't define me. Now, it's very important to remember that this klal of the yechida not being involved is only with regards to negativity. It's only with regards to the experiences that are against the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it comes to anything in my life that is illuminated with the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, my positive thoughts, my good attributes, my positive emotions, my thinking good, this is revealing the essence of the Yechidah Shebenefesh. It's not the Yechidah Shebenefesh itself, but it's a hisnoitzetutz and an alignment with the other parts of the self, with the intentionality of the Yechidah Shebenefesh. That Ratzon l'Ratzon, that even though it's not revealed, is finding alignment in the lower parts of self. This is what happens in this most amazing Gemara when Klal Yisrael come and they say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, oh my goodness, we failed. We fell into the Chet HaEgel. We fell into the Chet HaEgel and we're stuck in shame over the Chet HaEgel. And we're terrified, Rebbeinu Shalom, that you're never, ever, ever going to forget the Chet HaEgel. We're terrified that you're never going to forget the inequity in what we've fallen into, that you're not going to forget how bad it is, that you're not going to forget all of the sense of shame and the stuckness that we find ourselves in. And this is based on the Maharal's understanding of interpretation, explanation, Gilui on this Gemara in Tiferes Yisrael. But the Maharal says that Klal Yisrael come to Hashem and they say, we're terrified you're not going to forget the Egel. And Hashem says, I'm going to forget the Egel, don't worry. I'm going to forget the smallness. I'm going to forget the struggle. And then when Klal Yisrael come to realize that, oh my goodness, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could forget something, those things are not essential, and therefore they can be forgotten. But then what about my good deeds? Then Klal Yisrael came crying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're going to forget Matan Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're going to forget the love that you have for us. You're going to forget the connection that you have for us. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say, no, I'm not going to forget that. That I'll remember. Zok Tehil Gemaral. Why is it that Hashem is going to forget the Egel and he's going to remember Har Sinai? Because the Egel is not the Etzem and Har Sinai is the Etzem. Meaning to say that the falling that I experience, the struggle that I experience, that's only experienced on the levushim, on the hisgalus of the etzem, on the nefesh, ruach, neshama, or even the chaya, God forbid, on a certain level. But from the perspective of Matan Torah, that's the Yechidah Shebenefesh. That's not dependent or contingent. That's essential. That's the expression that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to reveal in the world, and that can't be scrubbed away. And so on Yom Kippur, what we're doing is we're identifying ourselves and our essential selves with our Yechidah Shebenefesh, with Ritzonenu Lases Ritzoncha, which expresses itself by way of our willingness to overcome our base desires for HaKadosh Baruch Hu by not eating, by not engaging in the things that we naturally want to engage in. That's a Mesiras Nefesh, B'poyel Mamish, in the Guf Mamish, which reveals the irreducible goodness of the Jewish neshama, specifically from within the body. The harder the fast gets, the more and more it's revealed. But all of the chatayim and all of the shkagos and all of those things, what we're doing is we're throwing them away. We're finally throwing them into the water. We're finally throwing them back into that place of mayim b'mayim, into the mikvah, and saying, Hashem, through the context of understanding the innermost point of my neshama, I understand that I can now throw away all of the garbage because they don't define who I am. So what the shoygeg of Yom Kippur means is two things. It means that we come to terms with the fact that Rebbeinu Shleilim, I cannot fully express the innermost point of my neshama in this world. The Yechidah Shebenefesh is hidden from me, and I lack the ability to align myself in this world. And because it's not present within me, I find myself stuck in behaviors. But those behaviors are b'shkaga because I don't bring all of myself into it. There's a part of myself that remains disconnected from that place. And in that place, ki kol ha'am b'shkaga. Everything that I've done can be reflected on and seen as a shkaga, and will only be revealed afterwards through the secret of tshuva how that process was necessary. But I transition from that shame orientation of being fully expressed within my destructive behaviors, and I see those destructive behaviors now as something else. And so the first part of the shkoyeg is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you placed us in a world where we can't express our full self, so therefore you can't hold us responsible. And this is explicitly stated, so much of what we're talking about is explicitly stated in the writings of Rav Tzadok. But Rav Tzadok, in the first piece in Resisei Laila, describes the condition of what it means to be a human being in this world, describes the nature of someone who cannot access the full parts of self, because ultimately that remains concealed. And as a result, we find ourselves wandering around in this world without kavana, without kivun, without intentionality, without deliberateness. Nothing is fully deliberate because there's a part of myself, the best part of myself, that remains concealed and not revealed yet, that part of Mashiach. And that's why Rav Tzadok says in this world, a person needs a walking stick. They need a map to be able to walk through because the entire world is compared to darkness and it's compared to a path of walking along a path. And Chazal have already told us that to walk along a path means to be in a state of being bothered. V'ha'olam hazeh kulo tirda. This world is being bothered. This world is the opposite of kavanah. This world is the opposite of intentionality because I don't have a full alignment with all parts of myself. And the departure from this world is referred to in Chazal as the day of comfort and rest because the soul now experiences rests from its tirda. What the tirda is when the Yechidah Shebenefesh is not revealed. The tirda is when I think that my nefesh, ruach, neshama are all in charge, and it's the warring expressions of the self. That's the tirda. So kol zman that the nekuda pnimius of the soul is not believed in, so there's tirda, which is why when a person leaves this world, it's referred to as a place of noyach, of comfort. Ki adam la'amal yulad, a person finds himself stuck in the world of effort. Effort is yes or no, good or bad, contingent, dependent. U'lachein amru b'Yerushalmi, and this is why we have Lashonos in the Yerushalmi that says Anna min yoima loy kavanis. that the Tanoim HaKadoshim were able to say that I have not had a moment of true intention for the entirety of my days. Ki tirdahu hepech hakavana, because being bothered by the separation of the self, by the lack of the revelation of the Yechida, that's the opposite of the possibility of having true intention. And therefore, it's impossible to have full intentionality. And if it's impossible to have full intentionality, then kikola ambishkaga. If I didn't bring my full self into it, then my full self is not responsible for it. And there's a part of myself that remains outside of it. And this is the secret of being a person in this world. Rav Tzadok at the end of Divrei Sofrim says as follows, in describing this secret of what we're trying to enter into on Yom Kippurim. V'zeh gam kein sod habisum bepurim ad delo yada. This is the secret of intoxication on Purim to the point of not knowing anything. Ki Yom HaKippurim, because when it comes to the day of Yom HaKippurim, of Kikola Ambishkaga, Amru B'tikunim, it's expressed in Tikkun Zohar Chaf Aleph, Dehu Kemo Purim, that Yom HaKippurim, as we know, is only like Purim. Umi nitla b'mi, katan b'gadol. And who depends on who? The lower one depends on the higher one, meaning if Yom HaKippurim is being compared to Purim, then Purim reveals a higher light. V'hainu, what does it mean? The Yom HaKippurim hum oilam habina. The world of Yom HaKippurim, like we said, is the world of oilam habina, of trying to do tshuva properly, which brings into consideration the fact that kikola am b'shkaga. V'az nisratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu al-Maisa ha'egel. And at that point, HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgave Klal Yisrael for the Maisa ha'egel and revealed that he forgets the inessential and remembers the essential. Kikola am b'shkaga. And it's only in that place that we now have the responsibility of korbanos and to try and fix, because we now understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has forgiven us. And Rav Tzadok continues and he says, V'al kain, at the end of all things, when we come to realize that all of the brokenness and all of the shattering are not necessarily our faults, because they took place in a place beyond us. They took place in a place beyond my rationality. These dinim that draws down negativity in the world, says Rav Tzadok, emerges when we realize kifi goydel hacheshek v'ha'ahava sheyesh lo l'divrei Torah limsor nafsho aleha, in accordance with the level and the desire that a person has to live in accordance to the innermost point of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants in this world, and to be meiser nefesh on the fact that that's my belief. Kein hu hasagas chachmaso mistareyan ha'meskalan loy b'hamshachas ha'chachma elyona. So too, in accordance to my mesiras nefesh on this belief, is that belief going to be drawn down into me. V'haschalas esoyros hadinim, and the beginning of concealment, the beginning of feeling disconnected in accordance to what we're talking about. Shemisham hamshachas mitzias hara b'poel hu mehabina. Bina is the place where negativity begins to emerge. Ava b'chachma, in that place of chachma, in that place of the chaya, there's no real reality of negativity, because in that place it's a place of thought and everything is refined. But zak the heilige Rav Tzadok, va'al kein hamishte, when it comes to the mishta of Purim, and the shichrus of Purim, and the intoxication of Purim, who ad de lo yada, it's coming to a place of not knowing. Ben ara haman lebarach Mordechai. I don't know anymore whether my good deeds or my bad deeds are one way or the other. Blessed is Haman, cursed is Mordechai. In that place of lo yada, I don't know anything anymore, because there's a part of myself that's always not present, and therefore everything is bishkaga. I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't have full kavana. The misad histalkus hadas, that from the perspective of coming to terms with the disappearance of knowledge, where I come to realize that I don't know anything, I didn't know anything, lo yodea klum, lo yodea klum, lo yodea klum, ein yedia lahavdil ben aru lebarach, hakol shav lefanav. I don't even know what is good and bad anymore. I don't know what is my expression versus the Yechida Shebenefesh, because all I know is that the Yechida Shebenefesh is being revealed on Yom Kippurim. That's what I realized. Everything else was shkaga. I didn't know. I didn't know how to make the differentiation between Ara. I didn't know how to make the differentiation between Baruch, and everything was equalized. That's what a person is accessing on Purim, and that's also what Yom Kippurim is revealing to be the true state of our mind throughout the year. On a darga of Purim, in this world, it reveals itself only through intoxication of lo yada. But on Yom Kippurim, it expresses itself in this place of realizing that I don't know. Kimitzad dasa adam, from the perspective of my knowledge about myself. Hu ha'havdala bein tov v'ra v'kodesh v'chol. That's where I'm working on the separation, on the severing between the good parts of me and the bad parts of me, the holy parts of me and the unholy parts of me. V'rakim ein das havdalah minayim, but it's only when there's no das whatsoever. It's only when I'm beyond das, where I know that I don't know, and I know ki kol ha'am b'shkaga. That's where the place where havdalah minayim. There's no more a way of making a havdalah. U'ba'olam hazen, in this world, das chasarta ma kanitza. And in this world, if I'm missing das, then really what have I done? Because on the level of my experiences on nefesh, ruach, neshama, and chaya, I need to utilize das. I need to live with responsibility. But aval b'shleimas hayadia, but in that place of the yechida, aval b'shleimas hayadia, shalom neda, in that place of the yechida, which is that concealed place which will never be fully revealed, and therefore it reveals hikola ambeshkaga, hu shiagia l'makam chisaron hadas. A person has to come to the place of the recognition that there was a chisaron hadas, that anameyoma lo kavanis, that I have a chisaron hadas, I didn't have attention. Shemizehu hamshacha shleimas kinyan hadas, because that is the only way that I'm actually going to draw down the true kinyan hadas, which is the secret of the yechida. Ad she'ein chaser klum. Kishikr dekula alma delay, like an intoxicated person, whose entire life, who has the entire world in his hands because he owns the Yechidah Shebenefesh and realizes the secret that I am not my actions. And there is a part of me that rests on the inner interiority of the soul. V'zehu asimcha de kedusha simei Purim, and this is the joy of the holiness of Purim, when we merited the forgiveness that came about in the days of Mordechai ve'ein kam makom lebar yoter. Now, Rav Tzadok, we're not just comparing Purim to Yom Kippurim here. Rav Tzadok started this Torah off with saying that this is the element of Yom Kippurim, that it's reaching that high place of Tachlis Hayadiyah Shalei Noida, tapping into the Yechidah Shebenefesh, tapping into that Cheshek. All I need to do is have Cheshek. Cheshek, Cheshek, Cheshek. That's all a person has to reveal on Yom Kippurim. Chazal have already set up for us what the words mean. Chazal have already enabled for us the entire process of saying sorry and the belief that Itzuma Shel Yom Mechaper. All we have to come to terms with is the first step prior to being able to be forgiven, which is recognizing that I am not what I have done. There are parts of me that I can let go of. I am not my actions. If I feel that I am my actions, I can never be forgiven because I can't let go of them. But when I realize that they're not me and I go through the process of hachna, havdalah, and amtaka, I'm able to let go of them. And I'm able to allow the soul to shine in its purity, in the yechida, in the singularity of the soul. Zok the Heilige Magid of Mezrich, which will end with this nakuda, in Parshas Kisisa, in Or Torah. V'ruach HaKodesh girulanu. There's a Ruach HaKodesh in the Welt that has been megala to us, says the Magid. We received this. That im yihi azman, zeh she'yeh cheshek gadol libnei adam leida es Hashem uledavik bo. That when there is a time, when there's going to be a time where there's a cheshek gadol, a profound desire of the Yechidah Shebenefesh within each and every person to come to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Az yirtzeh hacheshek hazeh ke'oile v'chekol hakavanos. This desire, in spite of the fact that it's not finding expression, this innermost point of desire, the cheshek of the Yechidah, it will be considered as if it were an actual korban. It will be considered as if it were actually the pure intentionality of each and every action that we did. V'zehu ki bi chashak. This is the secret of the pasuk, because it is me that you have yearned for, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'az yihiyeh ha'geula b'mheira b'yameinu amen. And when a person understands that our cheshek, the innermost point of the Yechidah Shebenefesh, the irreducible singularity of the self in its lack of expansion, the tiny dot of the soul, the dot of the ink of the soul, that's where Geula comes from. That's where Mashiach Tzidkenu is revealed within each and every one of our hearts. And this, says the Maggid, is Imoy Anochi B'tzara, I'm with you in pain. Afal pi shelo yadu shum kavana, even though you don't know anything, you have no intentionality. Lo yodei klum. You're in a place of tsar, you're in a place of shogig, you're in a place of running around without a mind. In order to bring about this place where I don't have hasaga, where I have nothing, I'm in a place of tsar. I have to learn to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with cheshek, with yearning and burning desire, and uncovering the fact that there is an innermost point that might not yet be revealed within me, but I come to believe that it is there. Not because I've earned it, but because I believe in Nishmas Yisrael, and the secret of the Goral Hashem, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Ahavti Osam Amar Hashem. Hashem says, I love you, and we say, B'mei Ahavtanu, Alo Aches of Liakov. Don't we look the same on the level of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and even Chaya, God forbid? Not on the real level of Chaya, only in the expression of Chaya. Don't we look the same? Zakta Kadosh Baruch Hu, Yaakov Ahavti ve'Esav Sanisi. I love you. It's not with reason. Zakta Hedger of Tzadok and Dovar Tzedek. That is talui. The chiluk between Yaakov and Esav, the chiluk between the two seirim of Yom Kippurim, is talui in Reshid Lo Asiyada, the shorish of the Yechida. It's not in accordance with what we grasp, and it's accordance with our willingness to accept Kikol Ha'am B'Shkaga. Kikola Ambishkaga, to come to terms with realizing Kikola Ambishkaga. Shkaga is the gematria of 311. It's the secret of the Rosh Tevos of Ein Shum Yesh. Ein Shum Yesh, because Kikola Ambishkaga, on the level of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and Chaya, God forbid. So there's a place of Asur Lehit Ya'ish, that you can actually give up hope, but you have to remember not to give up hope. It's forbidden. But then, even if a person gives up hope and they enter into the Chidush of Nefesh, it's there that it's revealed that Ein Shem Yesh Ba'ilm Klal, which is why Shkaga is the gematria of Ish, which is the Rosh Tevos Ein Shem Yesh. As when a person enters into that place of Cheshek, of the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol, the shemos of the bris menucha that's rooted in the world of bria, that's yearning upwards to draw down the highest lights of the kodesh hakadashim, of the yechidah shebenefesh. Az echaltzeu megalas hamar. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu frees me from the levushim of exile, from that sense of the shame. Va'areyu b'Yeshuasi, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to reveal His Yeshua. Sheyeh laham hasaga. Then we'll come to grasp the true nature of things. Umala haaretz day, and we'll come to understand the yechidah shebenefesh. But everything is dependent upon and contingent on that desire, that innermost point of desire that we have to be moiser nefesh to listen to. Our willingness to fast, our willingness to put ourselves into pain, our willingness into going into the inuyim of the day, reveal the cheshek of the yechidah shebenefesh, that all it wants is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'zehu ki b'simcha teitzeu v'havein. And this is the secret of you will exit exile in joy, a joy that is revealed with the Yechidah Shebenefesh, and that will bring us Be'ezras Hashem to the illumination of Sukkot, to the illumination of living in the air, of living in that place of Bein HaShamayim u'Bein HaAretz, and that place of the Yechidah Shebenefesh being drawn down until the Suda of the Levyasan Be'ezras Hashem.